Good morning, everyone. Bienvenidos a todos. My name is George Camacho. I am a friar minor living in Santa Barbara, California at our novitiate, and it's my honor to be here today with our illustrious panelists. Quick question for the audience, 3 actually. Who is excited for today's young adult panel discussion? Woo! All right, good. Yeah, to start for that. Now, question number 2, who loves synodality? Woo! Yes. And finally, who loves Jesus? Woo! All right, thank you very much. Thank you. Jimmy, let's start with you. Can you please give us your full name, where you're coming to us from, and your connection to the Franciscans?
Hi, everyone. I'm Brother Jimmy Kernan. I grew up in Syracuse, New York, and graduated at St. Bonaventure University. It's where I first met the Franciscans. I'm currently stationed at Siena College in their physics department, and then also in their Laudato Si Center for Integral Ecology, working there on issues of integral ecology, sustainability, and environmental justice.
Hi, everyone. I'm Aram Clue. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I work full-time in the consulting industry. I'm married, and I'm a secular Franciscan in the Padre Pio fraternity there. Yeah.
I'm Phil McCarter, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. That's where I met the Franciscans. Currently in studies in the post-novitiate down in San Antonio with Tyler Harris and Ricky Madeir. That's me.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allie Lease, currently living in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Full-time, I work as a research professor at the University of Michigan. I first met the Friars in 2009 when I started at St. Bonaventure and have been very involved with Mount Irenaeus, particularly since my graduation in 2013.
Buenos dias. My name is Tony Luevano, and I am from San Francisco, California, where I'm stationed at St. Anthony's Foundation. And I first met the Friars at Mission San Luis Rey in Oceanside, and I've been a friar since 2016, started formation.
Thank you, panelists. All right, for our next question, Allie, we're going to start with you. What is one thing that you would like our Synod participants to know about Franciscan-hearted Catholics under 35 years old?
Yeah, thank you very much. I really would like our Synod participants to know that we, especially as young adults in the church and in this current world, really just want to be seen and heard. And, you know, I think ministries like St. Bonaventure and Siena College and Mount Irenaeus do a really good job of really helping individuals, especially as they enter their first adult part of life, feel seen and worthy of love, which may, in some instances, be the first time where they're experiencing that. And it really helps set the stage for moving into the world as an adult in a way that they're able to then, and we're able to then, bring those values to others who we interact with in our ministry.
Thank you. Aram, what do you think?
Yeah, that was really good. I'd also just want to add briefly that young adults are seeking belonging in the church. It's very lonely. There's an epidemic on loneliness. But they find that refuge in the church, and the church is really somewhere where we can make it our own. And so giving us the space to come and be authentically who we are and share our struggles, but also our hopes, I think is something to know about Franciscan-hearted young adults.
Excellent, thank you. And definitely any concrete ways during our panel that you can share with us on how to do that would be certainly welcomed. And I know we're going to talk more about this as we go on, but thank you. All right. Tony, what do you think?
I guess something that has sort of kind of piggyback on what Elise and Aram have shared, that authenticity, but also that formative experience of moving into adulthood as a young person. Something that within the context that I'm in San Francisco, I find that there's a lot of Franciscan-hearted young people that perhaps are Catholic, were Catholic at one point, have a spiritual or religious inclination in their own lives, and very much speak the Franciscan language, but don't actually have the terminology that we, within the Franciscan world, often just use very fluidly in our circles, in our conversations, but are very Franciscan leaning in the way that they're expressing themselves, yearning, that belonging, the authenticity that again, within the context that I'm in San Francisco, it's constantly there, day in, day out. And the reality is that how do we begin to insert the naming of what it is to be Franciscan for these young-hearted Franciscans in the making? And so that is the reality that I often find myself with young adults within San Francisco, particularly as I mentioned, that they speak of values of belonging, of wanting to participate, wanting to be engaged, wanting to have a platform that they can be not only heard, but to be an equal partner and an equal member of that formative experience of whatever it is, whether that is civically, but also in the way that they want to construct the world in and around them. And so that's really been what I see through and through in my own experience in my ministry and the ministry that I've been entrusted with, that young people yearn for what we have. They just don't have the language for it. And they fall in a very large spectrum from practicing Catholic on a regular daily basis to the farthest end of identifying as a secular person in the world, but has very strong rooted elements of wanting to belong, to be present, to be change makers, which is rooted in our own Franciscan language.
Thanks, Tony. So the emphasis on an extensive network that is beyond we Friars, and seems to be a theme that's already arising amongst our discussion. So thank you. Phil, what is one thing you'd like our Synod participants to know about Franciscan-hearted Catholics under 35?
I would say just a reminder that we exist, that we're still here, we're alive. I know when we see the graphics of the way the future's trending and how the numbers go down, I know the numbers have dropped significantly, but it's not to zero yet. And so, don't forget about us, don't abandon us. In that synod that Tyler Harris organized, one of the other things that came out of it was a lot of the young adults really yearn for community. They want to belong, like a lot of the panelists were saying. And so it's almost like we used to be a great fire, and now we're reduced to almost embers. But someone still has to fan the embers, has to keep it going. And one day the fire will be large again. But at this time in our history, we have to make sure we nurture what we still have left before it goes out completely.
Don't lose hope. Thanks, Phil. Jimmy?
No, I think one things that I have a privilege of working with young people right now in the college setting, and I ask this question a lot to students and to other young people I've been in contact with and kind of different parts of ministry in the church. And one of the things that I kind of see over and over again is presence and authenticity. It's sometimes you're like, what would you like Friars to do? How would you like us to gauge? What new things do you want to see? And they're just like, just show up. Just show up to all of these kind of different things that are going on. It's not so much about always the what that we're doing, but the how that we're doing it. Are we building relationships? Are we building the sense of community that all the people here talk about, is really being deeply longed for in the world? And there's so much. I'm a scientist, so I think about the numbers and the data and the stuff like things like loneliness is increasing. Our experience of young people with a significant amount of mental health has come to the forefront and a serious challenge for a lot of people, and a lot of that builds out of community. How can we bring people together and build community? And that's a lot of the long for. It was for us as Franciscan people, part of our very title is relationship. It's being brothers, it's being sisters to the world. So how do we continue to bring people into that relationship with one another? I think is something that's really being longed for with young people. And I think they see the need for it, but maybe need kind of a catalyst to bring it together. And that's something that I think our ministries have a great ability to do that, a great hope of doing that. And I think the young people who work with us and are around us see that too. They see us as kind of those people and really hope for that out of us.
Thanks, Jimmy. So the emphasis on connection and relationship building, that there's things that we Franciscans, when are at our best, we're already good at. So kind of leveraging that strength. So along those lines, for our next question, as Phil noted, thank you, Phil, we know that the Franciscan future has fewer friars at fewer ministry sites and more lay leadership and fewer priests. So the future of Franciscan ministry in the U.S. will be a little different, and this may be a source of anxiety for some folks in this room and beyond. So to our panelists, what gives you hope for the future of Franciscan ministry specifically, and how do you see young adults contributing to our charism in the future? Aram, can we start with you this time?
Yeah, sure. So it's just such an honor to be sitting here right now, and I think that part of why I'm here is because of the beautiful witness and testimony of just other Franciscans, other Catholics that I encountered. I did not grow up Catholic, and I didn't know who St. Francis was a few years ago, like at all. I'd never heard of him. So it's just crazy to think that because of the stories that I heard, because of the encounters that I've seen people go through, by meeting other Franciscans and interacting with that charism, it inspired me, and I wanted that. I was attracted to that. I'll give you a quick anecdote. So my wife is a cradle Catholic. She went to the largest Protestant university in the country and created the first ever Catholic campus ministry there. And when I met her and she was telling me the story, I was thinking, like, why would you go through that? Like, what is it about your Catholic faith that you're so sure about that you would be willing to do that? And she was ready to tell me that. And it was authentic. It was her story. And that's the only thing that each and every person has. But I think Catholics it's not often that they're used to sharing their story. And so I'd say training up young adults, training up Catholics in general at parishes and apostolates to authentically share how they've encountered Christ is one of the most powerful tools that we have to use to evangelize the world, to make missionary disciples.
Thank you, Aram. So the power of personal testimony. And if we can just stick with you for one more second, can you briefly explain to us how you found your way towards the secular Franciscans, thank you, and in a setting where the Friars were not actively present at a parish in Raleigh, North Carolina. Can you share a little bit about what that's like and how the Spirit moved in that part of your journey? Because that's significant, and it's more realistic of what the future might look like.
Absolutely. For the friars in the room who have served at St. Francis of Assisi in Raleigh, thank you so much. It's been beautiful to get to meet you, but when I came to the parish, there were no friars there. And I think that's also what we're talking about here, like with decreasing numbers of friars, needs to consolidate. You often wonder what's going to happen if we're gone. And you trained up the laity in that parish so well that I was able to experience the Franciscan charism from the parishioners, those who are left, those who had been impacted by serving with the friars, starting the justice and peace initiatives in the community that are still long-standing there. And it inspired me. And some of these people are secular Franciscans. Ellen Ferrone is in the room. She was one of the catechists on the team when I was going through RCIA to come into the church. And it's just so awesome to see parishioners that are just really passionate. They are living out the Franciscan charism, and I could tell. I didn't have a name for it, but I was like, there's something there, and I want that. This is a way that I'd never seen before to live out the gospel and to be a Christian, and I wanted to be a part of that.
Thank you. Allie, let's move on to you. What gives you hope, and how can young adults contribute to our Franciscan charism based on your experience?
Yeah, thank you. So I think, what I've seen in my work in the field of public health and beyond is that as a whole, young adults really just want to leave the world in a better place than how we received it moving into adulthood. And I want to kind of go back a little bit to what Tony had said about how there are so many Franciscan-hearted individuals that he meets and interacts with who aren't necessarily Catholic, and they may have never been Catholic. And I think that the Franciscan the charism really runs so deep that at its heart, it's really quite ecumenical in its nature and the reach and the scope, both of the people that we help, but also the people that through mentoring are touched, who then can go out, and even if they're searching in their faith or in their spirituality, they're still able to help others and really live in that Franciscan way. I just want to share a very brief story from my job. I work at the University of Michigan, and one of our very dear professors just retired, and we were going through how many people she had mentored, kind of to see the lineage of her research line. And over her 30-something year career, we found that she had directly mentored or influenced about 500 individuals. And just thinking of the reach of how each of those individuals have their own mentees who they're teaching and learning. And, looking around this room, there's 200 of us, and who knows how many lives we've touched in the Franciscan spirit just in moving through and being who we are as Franciscan-hearted individuals. So that's what gives me hope.
Thank you, Allie. And just sticking with you for a little bit longer, can you briefly share with us, based on your unique connection to the Friars as a student yourself and then through Mount Irenaeus, what's kept you with us? Why? Why are we still interesting? And why are you so invested? We appreciate it, but just to share with the group, what's that been like for you?
Yeah, so the Friars were really, this kind of came out in my initial introduction, but the Friars were really one of the first places that I found a family at Mount Irenaeus, and being able to then keep that a part of my life has really brought me a lot of joy, a lot of happiness. As Brother Kevin says, it's the benefits of a liberal arts education. I've learned so much from them over the years, and part of what keeps me coming back is both the calm and the sense of peace that just overcomes you when you go to Mount Irenaeus, but also the love that then I'm able to bring back to the people in my life in Ann Arbor, Michigan, whether it be the students who I'm helping to give a voice to, or just people in band or who I interact with on a day-to-day basis. And that's what draws me back, that love and connection, both to the people, but also to the underlying spirit of radical joy and happiness.
Thank you. Phil, what do you think? What gives you hope, and how are young adults? How can we keep them connected and how contributing to our Franciscan charism?
Well, what really gives me hope is the fact that I've seen that the Spirit is still at work in our Franciscan family. In 2021, 8 of us took our first vows. There was myself and 7 of my classmates. And I remember when we first got to postulancy in Silver Spring, most of us were just like deers caught in the headlights. We were just caught up in the whirlwind of discernment and postulancy. And we really didn't, most of us didn't have clear-cut paths we were planned to walk down. But as the years progressed and the Spirit moved, we've all, become our authentic selves, and the brothers are just using their gifts and their talents to better the world, and in new and creative ways. Like Jimmy studied molecular engineering at the University of Chicago. Kevin Hamzik studies fine art at Columbia. We have brothers who studied mission, who studied multiculturalism. I studied addiction counseling, and so like I said before, even though the numbers are low, the quality is very high when it comes to the brothers that are in the pipeline. And, they're not just going through the motions. They're not just doing what guys before them did. They're really discerning with the Spirit how they can, use their gifts and their talents to advance this mission in the world. And they're really coming up with new and creative ways to advance the gospel in the world. And it fills me with excitement and hope when I see the Spirit, still at work in us.
Thank you, Phil. So along those lines, Jimmy, what gives you hope?
I think something that gives me a lot of hope is our history. I had the great privilege of living in San Francisco, living with the great friar David Ga, who's a provincial in St. Barbara province. And David would always like to remind us at the dinner table when we talk about things like this. And David would be like, well, there was all the friars here during the mission time, then there were 6, and then there were 1,000. Now there's like 100. And our history and our life goes through these kind of waves and ebbs and flows, but the friars have been there and been present and been doing things, and it's been adjusting to our different situations, our different times. And what gives me hope is that we've been doing this for 800 years, and we've gone through all of these different transitions and movements in world history, and we've gotten through them. And not only just gotten through them, we've thrived in them, we've grown in them, we've done new things and been in new places and found new ways of engaging the world around us, whatever it might have been at that time. So I think that gives me a lot of hope, is just like that history that we have. And I think like we're at another shift. I think it was kind of mentioned yesterday. We're not just doing this new thing, like we're in a new era of the church. A shift is happening, a shift is occurring. And what we're doing here and doing now is what we need to be doing. We need to keep having these conversations, keep one is kind of a big collective, but also like we need to go back to our communities and have these conversations. Like, what are we doing here that we need to be called to do? Like, as we see all of these shifts going on around us, and I think like the hope that I have is we've done it before, and we can do it again, and we can keep doing it as we go through all these different things and work with new people and work with new realities that take place.
Thanks, Jimmy. So you've emphasized there's a legacy that we can tap into that gives us some perspective. And with all due respect, not even Calvin Klein has been as successful with the branding as we have. Same wardrobe, same legacy. So there's something to say. Yeah. So Tony, please, what gives you hope for the future?
Well, let me just go back to the worrisome or the anxiety sometimes. So on the Conversations in the Spirit, on the backside we have the infograph that has the numbers of decline. I've been seeing that since 2016, since I joined. And one thing that I often do not, actually, I've never ever seen it actually shown on there, but it never accounted for friars, particularly who are in initial formation or temporary profess. And that's never ever made it into those infographics that I've been seeing time and time again. So it's always a decline that always get emphasized, and that is worrisome for me in the sense that like it can be paralyzing. It can be box us in as friars. This is our reality, and this is what we're moving, trending towards. And so the example that I often go back to is that when I was a student and engaging with some of my peers in the classroom who were from one of the places that we turned over back to the diocese, they would say, "Oh, we're losing our Franciscan friars, we're losing our Franciscans." And I said, "You are the Franciscans. You are just like us friars. We are not the torchbearers of the tradition. We might think we are, but we're not." And so at some point, I think we need to let others join us in that. And I think that's what gives me a lot of hope, is that having this synodal gathering is about that, of inviting others that are Franciscan in the fullest expression, that we saw and we see something in Francis that is experiential, it is livable, and it's transformational, that I think is so appealing, that I think it's what young people, but also those who have a long legacy with Franciscanism to the fullest extent, desire and want that to continue. And I was very blessed to be in fraternities where I had, and communities too, where I had older friars in my community that I was like, I want that, and that inspired me. And I likewise saw how much they fed off of that energy and that desire to be part of something, that their legacy was continuing. And so I think there was a very mutual nature that I think facilitates a lot of energy for me and what thrusts me into the future. Not worried about what the trend is showing, the infograph, but that infograph be something that is thrusting us into something new, something positive, something genuine that can arise from that. And so I think there's a lot of that for me in the way that we can be imaginative with our Franciscan spirit that we can cultivate.
Thanks, Tony. So a couple of things to highlight is decline the sense of decline versus opportunity and adventure and excitement of what's to come. Phil, to your point, the quality, that even if there's few of us, if we friars to begin with are at our best, hopefully that still makes a positive impact. And recognizing, as far as a rebrand, Franciscan network extends far beyond us friars and brown, as we see in our panel up here. The seculars, the second order, third order, we're a mighty force to be reckoned with. So thank you. And for our final question, what is one thing, panelists, that you hope the friars of our new province would either let go of or embrace in order to walk more faithfully into the future? And how do young adults play into that? So again, what is one thing you hope the friars of our new province would either let go of or embrace as we walk more faithfully into the future? Phil, why don't we start with you this time?
Thank you. It sounds cliche, but I say, let go of fear and embrace the future. The most inspiring moment of my formation is when we were here last year, and the provincials got up and they had their seals and they read their histories. Then they gave the seals over to Massimo, and for a brief moment, all the friars, we were like little orphans. We had no province to belong to anymore, and we were waiting for this new thing to come about. And myself being born and raised in Cincinnati, I know the history in that city, all the things that the Franciscans did there. And, to watch Mark, let all that go so that me and my brothers and the guys who are coming in the future could have a better quality of life, a better Franciscan experience. A lot of people have said to me that the 6 provinces could have drug on for years, and we could have kept it going. But I'm sure the air would have gone stale, and the quality of life that me and the young friars would have to live would have been not as exciting as it is now. So it's not lost on me that you guys did a great. It was a scary thing, but it was really inspiring to me to watch all the older friars take that leap of faith and start on this new journey with us. And I'd say that the young friars who are in formation, the friars who are newly professed, we're extremely excited. We're full of zeal. We're on fire for the life. And, I'm thankful for all of you guys who are willing to take on this project and to walk with the Spirit into the future with this new province. And so, just keep on embracing the future. Things are getting real now. We are a new province, and those old provinces are dead and gone, and they're not coming back. So we just have to keep on keeping on, I guess.
Thank you, Phil. Appreciate that. Let's see. Yeah, Aram, go ahead. What are your thoughts on this? What should we let go of or embrace?
I'll start with embracing. I think that's a little bit easier. I really think that we should embrace this idea that leadership isn't just for the select few who are born with the most obvious gifted talents. Every single person, by virtue of their baptism and confirmation, has been gifted with gifts of the Holy Spirit, also known as charisms. And they can use that. They can practice using that to be a part of God's kingdom, to be missionary disciples, and forming up young adult Catholics to understand that and to embrace that process of formation is so important for the church writ large. And like I was mentioning earlier, sharing your testimony, like everyone has something that's not insignificant. It's something unique that only they can give in their personal way. And making that to become more normative, I'd say the order should embrace that. We have all the skills that we need here. They're incredibly talented friars here and other Franciscan-hearted people in this room. And spreading that and multiplying that, making disciples who make disciples who make disciples is how we fulfill the Great Commission.
Awesome, thank you. And there's different vehicles to do that. Informally, like you said, you felt the Spirit when you came to this Franciscan parish, and also something more formal like the secular Franciscan. So there's lots of opportunities, which is great to acknowledge. Thank you. Allie, what are your thoughts on this? What do we need to let go of or embrace?
Yeah, so I'm also going to go embrace, which also comes with a little bit of let go of, but really embracing change and tackling it kind of head on. I think, as we all know, change is scary and change is terrifying, and sometimes we have a choice in the change, and sometimes the change is thrust upon us, and we just have to go with the flow with whatever has been given to us. And especially in thinking of the young adults in my life and in some of the young adult ministry that I do with the Mountain, there are so many young adults who want to help, and they want to take part, and they want to have a voice, and they want to be in leadership roles, and they have the energy and the motivation and sometimes the time. That becomes a little tricky at times. But as Aram said, like, there's so many skill sets that people have, both traditional and non-traditional, that can really be used to bring the Franciscan order well beyond the Friars into such a beautiful and shiny new place in the world as we navigate through things, and just giving us a chance and an opportunity to help make that change that we so desperately want to see at times.
Thank you, Ellie. And just to emphasize, when we talk about skills, immediately my head goes to professional skills, right? Okay, what are the concrete hard skills that we bring, which are important and they're well reflected in this forum. But as our panelists have emphasized so far, there's also that authenticity, right? That transmits that we have of our gospel living and all those good things. That's probably the most important foundational skill that's easy for some of us to forget. So thank you both. And let's continue with Tony. Yeah, what are your thoughts on this?
I think something to let go of is the silo thinking that first order, second order, third order, but really see those orders as collaborative, a Franciscan family. I think that's what we need to embrace, or the invitation really for us to consider, that is going to really engage all across the board. We're all been called, we've all been gifted, and I think that is what genuinely is desired by young people across the board, and that's how we authentically show up to what we need and what people desire. The experience, I think, says a lot, and what Drew meant to desire what Francis was doing, and I think it continues to be the case today, that when folks see any one of us in the way that we are showing up at our respective places, that is attractive, that appeals, and I think that's the draw in. And if we can very strategically collaborate and not just be seen or be heard, but be participants, equal participants, and that I think that will shift things in a different direction, I would imagine, and being able to consider and lean on and be supported on as well by others within that Franciscan family that just doesn't revolve around one of the branches, but collectively as a family. And so I think that's something that I think we could greatly embrace moving forward.
Thank you, Tony. Jimmy, what are your thoughts?
I had the privilege of being on the young adult Zoom call as well, and when Tyler and I were talking this morning, and Tyler was like, "You got to tell that story of like what happened that day," and I was like, "Oh yes, absolutely." And out of the whole day, there was a bunch of wonderful stuff, but like there's this one thing that just like it went straight through me, like right to the heart of someone who was on the call. Was just like, yeah, like young people aren't scary. Like sometimes we think that young people are scary, or like we don't know how to like be in relationship with them and work with them, and like I think like that can kind of get in the way of us really embracing working with young people. It's like, yeah, like young people aren't scary. Like let's kind of try to break down that wall that sometimes gets put up there. And so I think like that's something that we can certainly let go of, is this idea of like, I think sometimes we overcomplicate what we need to do with young people and what we need to be like for young people. And that's like we talk about like, it's building these relationships, it's building these communities, and like things that we've been doing in so many of these different places that we are. And like some of the other people here, I think one thing embracing is putting young people in positions of kind of leadership in our communities so that they can take some sense of responsibility, ownership, some sense of like really belonging, and we're not just kind of on the side of this, but like we really are into this. I think that makes a very big difference of how we do ministry and how we work with kind of the different people who are in all of our ministries in different ways. And one is that, like, this can take some formation. And I think we're very rarely going to have people like, well, I'm going to come in, I know exactly how this has to be done, and we're just going to do it. And no, like, people are going to ask questions. They're going to be curious. They're going to want to learn and grow from us. And like, these are really good opportunities to set up. How do we kind of form young people, form the people in our ministries to be a part of our Franciscan life and our tradition, and to grow into the charism? And there's a multitude of great opportunities to do that. Like, we have education institutions with thousands of young people across the country. Our parishes have a lot of young people in it. Our places of service have a lot of young people who come and volunteer. And how do we build those bridges and build thank you for coming, and maybe we'll see you some other time. Of, how do we build some community around that, and build people to continue to engage beyond kind of sometimes the transactional things that can happen in ministry that do that. So it's one of the things that I was kind of thinking about this already is with putting young people in these leadership is give young people an opportunity to fail. I think when I was a student at St. Bonaventure, it's a tradition at the end of the semester is we do a blessing of the brains. And my senior year there, I was asked to, will you do like a little reflection for the students? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, and so usually it was this thing kind of like after communion, like a couple minutes, and just basically usually a senior go up and like, oh, good luck, like you're gonna do great. And then I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And then a day later, well, it's like, oh, well, Father Dan, like, he had this idea of like, oh, like, let's do this shared homily. I'm like, okay. Like, it's like, never taken a homiletics class, never done, like I didn't have all of the training required, but it's like, the friars were trusting enough, like, no, like, let's give this person in our community an opportunity. And yeah, I might have fallen flat on my face and done it, but they also walked with me along the way. And this one, like, we do this, and I go and I set up a time where Dan and I sit down, we meet, and he's like, okay, so what are you thinking? I'm like, wait, like, aren't you the person who's, and it was no, like, it was really inviting me in at that point in my life to take responsibility and ownership for this life of ministry that we have in these places. And it was an opportunity for me, like, it could have gone wrong. And I think they knew that, but it's, do we trust people to really engage? And then if it does go wrong, help them. Help them along the way, pick them up, continue to walk with them. And it's not like, oh, okay, maybe that didn't work, and okay, move away. It's like, no, now what are we going to try? Like, okay, maybe this didn't work great, but what's next? Continue to move forward and working along with people. So I think there's a lot of stuff that we can do to really engage and give responsibility and leadership to others and young people in our ministries.
Thanks, Jimmy. So one thing I'd like to highlight from your reflection is that there is a balance and a recognition of the wisdom and the contributions and the leadership of our older friars. So it's not just please and family, Franciscan family members. It's not just step out of the way and let us do our thing. Although sometimes it's interpreted that way. We want to leverage the wisdom before a few folks run off to heaven. We still value the insights and the wisdom. So it's not a dismissal of that by any means. Yeah. But I think what our panelists are emphasizing is leveraging, giving the space for our young adults to lead and possibly fail, but it's okay, we're still in it. So it's not a dismissal of that in any way, just how to achieve that equilibrium. So thank you to our panelists. Because they're so fabulous, we actually are like about 2 minutes ahead of schedule. I'm gonna check with my producer. I'd like, Tyler Harris, I'd like to give each panelist, if there's anything that you would like to share that hasn't already been shared for our audience to walk away with, our family, Franciscan family, to walk away with. Here's your opportunity, and then we'll continue with the program. Yes, Tyler? Okay, thank you. Anything, panelists, just one final thought that hasn't already been shared that you'd like to, please feel free. Allie, go ahead.
I can start. So, as an academic, I'm always learning, and I really just want to leave everyone with the thought that learning goes both ways. So, as George mentioned, like it's really invaluable to be able to learn from those of us who are older, but also, there's so much that those who are older can pick up from those who are younger as well. I think the mountain in particular is a really great place where this just kind of happens organically, just through being with each other and the little conversations that happen, and being contemplative with each other is a really great way for that to that kind of learning and personal growth to flow both directions.
Thank you. Aram, did you have a thought?
Yeah, I'd say a final thing that's been on my heart as we've been talking about just the projections and trends is it's not like everywhere in the world, where everything's declining. There's some parts of the world where, vocations are skyrocketing, from my native Africa and other parts of the global South. And that shows that the Holy Spirit is still at work. And it reminds me of the early church as well. The persecution that was faced and how small and how sparse and how poor it was at the beginning, it's an even greater witness to the Holy Spirit. And as you mentioned, the order started 800 years ago, and it was just one person, receiving a call to rebuild the church. So even if there's only one friar left, that is enough for the Holy Spirit to work through if they are on fire and allowing God to let them be an instrument of peace in the world. So just to remember that, just for some hope. Yeah.
Thanks, Aram. Tony, did you have a final thought?
Yeah, I think I'll jump off what Al mentioned. The key word that comes to my mind is mutuality. There is great beauty when mutuality is extended, and it goes both ways, that many big things can occur. Francis took a big risk when he approached the leopard, and something genuine and something blossomed out of that. And I think we're in the same space right now, where mutuality, and if we really live in and through that reality, many things can really blossom. It's just a matter of taking risk, of being creative, of what new possibilities can emerge, types of ministries, ways in which we recruit into the Franciscan world, not just friars, but secular Franciscans, associates to sister congregations, just across the board. If we can think of more collaborative models that where mutuality is the undergirding principle that kind of motivates us, energizes us to really thrive in that, I think that is something that is very valuable for me, and that I think would be something worth offering as a last thought. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're not rival gangs. We're one church. Thank you. Phil, final thought?
I would just say that the Spirit is with us. There's really nothing like the Franciscan way of life. To see all these people, at the synod gathered together from all over the country, all over the world, really, but still here, discerning the signs of the times, trying to see Christ in the other and advance the gospel. It has to be the Holy Spirit. It couldn't be our doing. And so let us just, continue to trust in the Spirit and, have that courage to constantly begin again with the Spirit.
Thank you, Phil. And Jimmy, final thought.
Thank you. I think just found that along with Phil, trusting in the Spirit, that is with us and has been with us. I like to, I think in our prayer yesterday, the Holy Spirit, true Minister General of the Order. That it's the Spirit is guiding us and leading us and being a part of all of this and in our discernment. And I think with that is the Spirit's creative too. I think is one thing that we can really raise is being creative. And sometimes you'll be talking about and maybe we should try this. Oh no, that's a crazy idea. Who did try it? It's. Sometimes it's the crazy things that work, and I've had experiences of doing that, and try these prayer groups. I had someone come to me, hey, I was thinking about starting this workout prayer group thing on campus, and she's it's totally crazy. I don't think anyone does. Let's do it, and then eventually we got people into it, and there was a group of it. So sometimes it's those crazy ideas, and it's the improv lesson. It's the yes and of yes, let's do it, and oh, maybe we can do this. And it's letting the kind of creativity flow in some of our places of engagement. And sometimes we'll hear ideas, and it's like it's in community, so it's bringing those people together of like our ideas will kind of form, take shape, and as we do it together and talk with one another in doing it. And that's where like these ideas and new movements really flows. Like they can't happen in isolation. They won't work there, but like working with other people and engaging in that is a really good way forward.
Thanks, Jimmy. So stay open, stay
Yes.
creative. We're in it together. Thank you, High School Musical, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. To our panelists, thank you. Good job. Yay.